8:01 p.m. So we're going to get started. I'm the COO and the voice of Wolf Financial, and I love putting on spaces where we can all learn together. So technical analysis is something that I've been getting into more myself over the last few months, and it's great to be able to learn from people who have a wealth of knowledge and experience and who do this every single day, some of them for a living. So I've invited some fantastic speakers. I really highly recommend that each time, a speaker goes up to speak, we're going to go down the line. You go ahead and just check out their bio, check out some of their previous work, some of their charting. You might find something which is really, really appealing to you, and can learn a lot from it. So to kick things off, I'm going to have Shark kind of roll things off the top because you were the catalyst for the last space, help me out putting out together this one. So maybe just with an over the top start of an explanation of, I guess you kind of know what you want to talk about because we had the last one, but your technical analysis, what you've been looking at. And, since we have four speakers for this one, I think everybody can take a good, 8 to 10 minutes. And if you want to go a little bit shorter, I'm sure we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end, but I'll hand it over to you, Shark.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And yeah, definitely everyone that's in this space is go ahead and follow all the speakers here as they have wonderful and great contact. I follow content. I follow all of them. All right. So I'm going to dive in a little bit. Let me go ahead and talk to you guys how I approach the market each and every day. So I am a day trader slash swing trader. Really, what I do is I play on price action, and whatever presents itself that day is what I am usually gonna kind of attack. So how I go ahead and I break down. So I start my morning very early every single day, and I like to do a quick top-down approach. So I have all my watch lists already created beforehand, and I like to see what the major indices are doing. I like to see what the futures are doing, and I like to see what all the sectors are doing. And that just gives me a way to see what the stream and the flow is going for the day. For me, is I'm a trend trader. I don't like to fight the trend. I'm not going to try to tell everyone they're wrong all the time. We've made some money on AMC, and perfect example today in our community, I called out Clove at 958, and our community banked hard off of that. But it's all about price action. Okay, so for me, once I've done my top-down approach, my secondary thing is to come in and see what have I done the night before. So I always do my homework the night before, and I come to the market with a list of a few specific stocks that I am looking to play on that given day. And I recommend everyone make sure that they do something like this. I hear too often that people come to the market and they just open up their trading platform and they kind of just follow whatever's going on, or they just have a scanner, or they listen to people on Twitter. I truly believe that successful traders, and especially in the technical analysis realm, you're successful once you're able to actually do that chart analysis, and that chart analysis usually happens 24 hours ahead of time. You can always do chart analysis live, but those are for the experienced traders. I would recommend for people that are new and are learning, get a list of 10 to 20 stocks every day and do your charting on those. Okay, so that's my little spiel on that. And then now, what I like to do, my biggest play, guys, especially when I'm looking at stuff, is I like to see what is the unusual option activity for the day. For me, that's where the big money is. That's where the hedge funds and institutions are buying. I'm looking at a premium at a minimum of 1 million spent. So I won't bother with anything less than 1 million spent on any certain option, but I'm looking for a specific call or a specific put for that time frame. So perfect example, like for this week, I'm going to be playing June 11th calls, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for big out of the money buys and large purchases on stocks that are going to be expiring on June 11th. That's going to give me the price action that I'm looking for this week. And more importantly, it's giving me the flow of what big monies, institutions, and hedge funds are buying this week. And for me, I am like a fish when I jump into the stock market. I want to flow with the stream. I'm definitely not trying to flow against it. And another person to follow out there is Unusual Option Activity. It's Whale Unusual Option Activity. He has great stuff. And another website that a lot of people I feel like just kind of overlook, it's called barchart.com. And they have a wonderful breakdown on the daily option plays. And for me, that's what I like to scroll through. I like to see what's the big money doing. And then from there, then I start doing my technical analysis. Right now, one of the indicators that I would love to talk about, especially with the community here, is the MACD and the histogram. The MACD and the histogram is for me one of the best indicators out there. It's really showing the consensus of when bulls are starting to gain power and leverage, and when bears are starting to lose power and leverage, and vice versa. So if you're able to start looking at the MACD and the histogram, it will really start to help you in improving on when you're wanting to enter certain trades. For me, I wait on the 5 minute chart and I will never enter into a trade until the MACD crosses the signal line. For me, that is crucial. If I'm doing any kind of intraday or day trading, I am not doing anything until that happens. On the other hand, I'm also looking for on the daily chart when our MACD and our signal also overlap. When that happens, we're usually looking at a strong buy confirmation. And then I'm going to be looking and comparing what are that big money, big OTM strikes that are coming through on that specific stock. And that has been something I've been playing and doing for almost 5 to 6 years now, and it's been working wonders. Today we had a couple of nice calls for the community as well, but for me, I don't try to make it overly complicated. There's a lot of indicators out there that I would love to talk about, but I don't want to maybe bore the community, and there can be questions that I would love to answer. But for me, it's really about flow. I like to see what's the unusual option activity. I like to do my homework, and then I like to break down the MACD and our price action. The second thing that I always look for is where is the strong support and resistance, and where are our pivot points? That is crucial. If you aren't charting that as your first thing that you're doing, I highly recommend that, because that's something that isn't as difficult. It's sometimes hard to do some of the other charting if you're not very experienced. Calling out wedges and cup and handles can be difficult if you don't know what the patterns look like. But support and resistance and pivot points are something that are pretty easy to find. And if you're not able to chart those out, bar chart also gives you what the pivot points and the support and resistance are. So for me, bar chart has been crucial. It's been a tool that I use every single day. I'm actually on it right now looking at some of the unusual option plays. Now, for this week, there's some plays that are coming through on the unusual option activity strong, like Microsoft. We have EVs coming through strong. So CCIV, NIO, and XPEV, all EV plays that are having humongous out of the money call options for this week. And then also DraftKings and Penn. They're getting some out of the money option orders for June 18th. And I believe that those have been overly sold and are looking to recover as well. So that's how I like to break down things. And every single night before I ever do any play, I make sure on all my charts I've charted out pivot points and I've charted out strong support and resistance. And then throughout the day, I use my MACD indicator for confirmations on when to buy.
Fantastic breakdown. Thank you so much, Shark, for kind of really going into your mind and your process there. Bobby, welcome on.
Hey, how are
Bobby,
you?
you're just doing great, doing great. Glad you were able to get that working.
Thanks.
I'm gonna keep it rolling. Being asked just whenever any speaker isn't speaking to just mute out in the meantime.
Okay.
Awesome. So, Shark, real quick, a question for you before we keep moving along. You took
Yep.
us through a lot of your process and your mindset. Now, when you go to place a trade, talk to me about how you manage risk within that trade. If there is some type of
Perfect.
stop loss, if you're hedging, kind of walk me through that side of the trade.
No problem, no problem. So basically, whenever I do any trade, my first and foremost is my risk reward will always be 2 to 1. I will sometimes look at a like 1.5 to 1 ratio, but I'm really looking at a 2 to 1 ratio. That's why I don't like to chase things that have already exploded. I'm looking for things that are about to explode. And then, perfect example. Whenever I have something, and a perfect example, let's do a clove as an example today. When Clove breaks my price action, what I like is when I have my target. So each trade that I take, I will say, okay. So perfect example, today on Clove, when I announced it to my community at 9:58, I was looking for a 10:58 trade. So $1 a share, I'll be extremely happy. That's a 10% gain today. I would be elated. But how I like to play it is once my price action starts to break, and especially today, like if I'm looking for $1, I like to, at the 50% realm, start to now have a stop loss begin to trail. So perfect example, Clove, when we finally broke to 10, I then put my stop loss to at least even, right? So then if it decided to break off, or if it decided to fall off a cliff, or a falling knife happened, I'm going to be losing just the commission fees, okay? And then secondarily, once that dollar breaks, I'm moving my stop loss up now to a 50% realm. So now, even if it goes against me, I don't hit my dollar gain, now I'm at least hitting at 50 cents. Right? If you look at the unusual options activity, it's been extremely bullish, especially for this week. So for them, if it was the right hold, go ahead and do it. The other realm is, you know, the other realm would be to continue your stop loss up and then just make sure you're banking. So like we had some other people in our community continue their stop loss up, and then when it broke out to the 11s, they moved it up to I think 1050, and then when it pulled back, they got stopped out. But still, even at that realm, they were making $1 a share. So yes, for me, especially anything intraday, I am 100% moving my stop loss up as my trade is working for me. My biggest rule to anyone that I trade with, or anyone that in my community, is you'll never go broke banking. Okay? You can always get back into a trade. If you get hit and you make money, now you look for maybe a bounce off. Like, for example, what I told a lot of the people today is once it pulled back, look for a break. And this happened at about 11 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Western, so 1 o'clock your guys' time, would have been look for it to bounce off the VWAP and the EMA. And I had some people get right back in at 1040 and then rode that thing back up to 12 in the after hours.
Awesome. Appreciate you giving that deep explanation and being so transparent with your process. For me, I'm grateful that these are recorded because I love to come back and kind of get those. And just for anybody that is listening, one of my Wolf analysts, Josh Meltzer, is in the audience recording. So this will be up on the Wolf YouTube and Spotify likely within 36 hours, and you can see those on my pinned tweet. But I'm going to keep the ball rolling. And Ben, it is great to have you back on Technical Analysis Round 2 here. Would love to hear, some of your processes that you're going through each day, and then maybe some stuff that's been going on the last few weeks with your trades.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Thanks for having me. I use a combination of fundamentals and technical. So I'm running scans that are going to highlight strong earnings, strong revenue, those triple digit growers. They're going to be on my radar. And then that's when I take that list, we'll call that my universe list, and get into the technicals of the patterns that may be setting up. I use a lot of anchored VWAP. I use volume by price and volume shelves. I'm a big fan of anything moving into new highs. So a lot of times I'm using those price pivots as the breakouts. And kind of like what Shark was saying, a lot of my work, the heavy lifting, really happens outside of market hours. I'm really just waiting for my alerts to go off, or checking relative volume, or looking at those setups while the market's open. I'm not really searching or scanning for any ideas, while the market's open. I've done all that work the night before. I do share that on the weekends on YouTube. I'll run a video of all the top setups that I see, whether that's patterns or anchored VWAP or moving average reclaims or whatever it may be that I'm watching and really looks good and technically ready to go. I'll highlight those. We over the last couple weeks. Last week was, I think, the best week or very close to it of the year as far as the list. I had a bunch of them that just ran UPST, and this week off to a good start too until after hours hit. Had a couple of them do secondaries and after hours today. Gave some back, but for example, Playboy was one, and what I learned this from Brian Shannon of Alpha Trends, what I call a VWAP pinch, and what you're doing is taking an anchored VWAP, which is VWAP is the volume weighted average price, and it's highlighted on the chart similar to a moving average. Pretty good. In fact, the one speaking specifically to Playboy, the one off the low was acting as support for the last couple of weeks, but the one off the high was acting as resistance. So it kept pinballing between those two. And then late last week, we closed with an inside day, and that was Friday. If you don't know what an inside day is lower high and a higher low than the day before in one session. So price has consolidated in a narrow range that's completely within the previous candle. So I look for those. I really like to highlight those. I actually scan for those in TrendSpider. And when we get that inside consolidation, usually when it comes out, it really comes out of there with purpose. So when it takes out either the high, if you're looking at a daily chart, when it takes out the high of that inside day, it's go time. For some of you that might be swing traders on a shorter time frame chart, you can zoom into a 10 or 30 or 60 minute chart. Anytime you have an inside day on the daily, on the shorter term time frame, there's going to be a symmetrical triangle. So you just connect those highs on the top with a descending trend line, connect those lows on the bottom with an ascending trend line. If you're zoomed in on the 30-minute, 60-minute, when it comes out of there and you see the volume coming in, technically that's your cue to enter. For those of you that don't want to zoom in and just stay on the daily chart, you can just use that high, Friday's high of the inside day, as it comes out of there. And then I'm a big fan too of relative volume when you're having a breakout, whether that's a breakout into new highs or through a moving average or through a pivot, especially if it happens early in the session. You're going to want to check and make sure that there's some volume behind that, especially if it's a breakout of what's more of a traditional cup and handle pattern or a double bottom pattern or consolidation. If it's still bouncing around within the base, not as important. But as it, confirms that pattern and moves into new highs, you want to see that volume come in. So if you don't have a product that you're paying for, I get it through TrendSpider and MarketSmith. They both have it. But FinViz has a relative volume indicator that's free. So you can go on FinViz, check that relative volume in whatever stock it is that you're watching, and make sure that you're at least above the average pace, especially on a breakout. The higher, the better. But usually you wanna see a significant increase in volume. So besides sharing those, I share those inside and outside days at the end of the day, every day on Twitter. So when I take my universe list, run that scan late of the inside days, that tells me technically from my list what's consolidating. And then I also will run a scan for bullish outside days. Now, what a bullish outside day means, we took out the prior day's low. So when we took out the prior day's low, we scared everybody out. We ran some stops to the downside. We shook out all the weak hands. But before the close, price recovered. And it not only recovered, it's closing above the middle half of that range. So it's back to green on the day after shaking out everybody lower. So what's left? Nothing but the strong hands. You've already shaken out all the weak ones. If you can line those bullish outside days up with another, maybe it's a bigger pattern or an anchored VWAP or a volume shelf, or maybe it's just below a pivot for a breakout. If you can line up those bullish outside days before they break through pivot, that is a great, great indicator. Because when it does go through that pivot and starts moving on volume, you know you already shook out all the weak hands, and there's nothing but strong hands and organic buyers, at that point on the way up. So I focus on the inside days and the bullish outside days. Now, over the weekend, I'll put a list together of whatever my favorite trades may be. This weekend we had, and I had about 16 ideas this weekend that I shared on YouTube. Out of those, we had 6 of them today that were between 8 and 14%. So again, all of that work went in after hours and over the weekend, and looking at those charts, lining up my technicals. And some of these, like for example, Playboy, I was watching that for 3 weeks, waiting for the setup and the move that we finally got today. But all of that work was done, prior to today. Today, it's just setting the alert. One of the things I love about TrendSpider too is I can set my alert on an anchored VWAP, on a trend line, on a moving average, on a price. And as soon as it either touches or moves through, or I can even make a little window there within, let's say, 10, 20 cents on either side of it. And I'm going to get an alert. Either if I'm at the computer, it's going to alert me right there. If I'm on my phone, I can get a text, I can get an email. So I'm not missing anything. Even if I decide to, take the dog for a walk at lunchtime or something, I'm still connected to anything that may move. Now, if there's something especially that I really don't want to miss, and I want to make sure that I'm involved in if it goes, instead of setting an alert, I'll just set a buy stop or maybe a buy stop limit at whatever that technical level is. And then maybe give myself, 10, 20 cents room as far as setting a limit. What you don't want to do is set a buy stop that's going to give you a market order on something like a high flying biotech or something that's, really thin, because you could get a horrible fill. But, setting a buy stop on something liquid, setting a buy stop limit on something that isn't, if you've done the work technically beforehand, you can pretty much set it and forget it. Then when it goes off and you get filled, you just pop on over to FinViz, check the volume, make sure, like I said, that it's above average, and you're in. I keep my stops pretty tight on swings. It's usually within 3%. If it's a more traditional cup with handle, double bottom, a big consolidation pattern, a big cup base, something that maybe even working off of a weekly chart instead of a daily chart, then I'm more along the lines of the traditional Can Slim William O'Neill style 7% stop, looking for 20 to 25% gain. Shark mentioned earlier, trying to keep that risk reward ratio 2 to 1, 3 to 1. That's always a good idea. Weigh out your risk and how much you're risking first, and then make sure that you're going to get 2R, 3R if it hits your target. That's definitely the way you want to map them out before you even take the trade. And again, you're doing all of that after hours on the weekend. You're mapping that out. So that YouTube one that I share over the weekend, that's really my best ideas for the week. But I go through that routine every night. I won't come up with as many ideas, over the next few days, but I might get two or three more ideas each day that I can keep adding to the list. And that's what you guys see me sharing over on FinTwit. I'll put that setup out, tell you what I'm looking for, what needs to break or what needs to act as support, and just try to stay ahead of the moves.
Perfect breakdown, Ben. Appreciate you sharing that. A quick
Mhm.
follow-up question. So you
Sure.
talk a lot about how, right, you're using a ton of indicators and search settings and things along those lines. So you mentioned using FinViz, right?
So, not for my searches. I use FinViz as an example just for
Mm,
people that don't have TrendSpider or MarketSmith. It's you can't get that relative volume
okay.
um, anywhere else, really.
Is there a place where, so I know for FinViz, they allow people to even like share their settings, like this is what I'm searching for, shared, and then you could just click it and go right in. Have you shared, or I guess have you ever shared kind of like the settings that you're using for when you're going ahead and searching, or setting these indicators?
Okay, as far I don't share through FinViz, but I share all those that universe list that I mentioned on MarketSmith.
Hmm.
I've shared all of those. Those are all public there. All of the
Perfect.
technical scans that I just discussed, those are all shared on TrendSpider. And I even have some of my technical scanners that are now built into their software. So if you go into their scanner, you pull up pattern profits, you'll see in their scanner, I have a pullback scan, the VWAP pinch that I discussed with you that highlighted Playboy, that's in there. I also have the weekly and the daily SMA pullback, and you can, if you use the 8 EMA or the 10 MA or the 20 MA, it acts as a template. So you can go in, pull up the template that I already shared and that's built in, and you just change those moving averages to whatever fits your time frame and what you're trading, and they're there, and they'll pull up anything that pulled back, on light volume to that average, or anything from your own list. You can make your own, watch list, save it, and then run my VWAP pinch scan, and it'll tell you what's in a pinch. Not one that I've shared with FinViz because I use that as an example because it's free, and I'll tell you, MarketSmith is expensive. Not everybody has TrendSpider, but there are ways and there are tools, out there that you can use without spending a fortune. But just remember that once you start making money, you heard it here first. Yeah, go ahead and spend a little bit. It will make you a much better trader. I promise you. I could
Mm,
understand when you're first starting and when you're learning, not wanting to spend a lot of money out of pocket for software, or for whether that means for scanning, because you really need to learn your own style first before you can really apply it to scans, whether that's technical or fundamental. You need to figure out what your time frame is. So I can certainly understand not spending a lot of money early on, but once you start getting consistent, know what you're doing, know what your time frame is, having a really good platform to give you
mm.
alerts and scans will make you a much better trader.
Perfect. Perfect. Great advice. Absolutely. I have a couple more questions, but I'm going to get to our next two speakers first, just make sure that everyone has time to speak. Then we'll definitely have a little bit of discourse at the end. But Katrina, welcome to the space. This is the first time I've had you on a space. It's an honor.
Thank you. It's about time, Wolf.
I know we've been chatting on FinTwit for quite a long time. Well, regardless, thank you so much for coming on and agreeing to come on. And I know that you even went out of your way to make sure you didn't have work now. So we appreciate you being here, educating the masses, something you're amazing at. So would love to just hear from you a little bit about your style, your process. If anything that the other two said stood out from you, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Real quick, my Spaces is glitching, so I've had to like leave and reconnect a couple times. So I apologize if it messes up with me again. But I'm glad you had me because I'm gonna tell everybody right now I have a job. Like I can't sit at the computer all day and look at charts or day trade. I do have a job. I run the family business. I work part-time, but I'm on call a lot. And I'm actually was on call tonight and I had my cousin come in, to help me out just in case. So I am a, swing trader because of that. I'm not a day trader unless, like I day traded today because I actually was off and I caught I caught something today. I actually caught two things, Crowd and Tesla, but I am a swing trader because I have a job. So maybe I can relate to some people. And due to that, I really look at the daily. The daily rules all to me. I really wait for close to the close, like a half an hour before, just to see how the daily ended, because they really like to trick you. Um, I do a lot of my buy-in and after hours after I've looked at the dailies. And I probably look at like 150 stocks a day. Like I have my main go-to watch lists. And sometimes I'm like tired of them, and I'll admit I'll look at Ben's. Ben will bring up some different stuff, like stuff I've never heard of, and I'll look at his stuff. But otherwise, I have my normal watch list that I look through that I trade, but I trade off the dailies. I also use Bollinger Bands, and a lot of people they don't use Bollinger Bands. Like I only know like a handful of traders that use them, so that makes me a little unique. I do, share my charts. I share, my Bollinger Bands and how I use those. I also use the 13 EMA, the 50, and the 200. I for my momentum indicators, I use the MACD and the stochastics. So like all of those together, at the end of the day, I will look at, the charts just to see if they are a buy or they're a sell. And like tell you the truth, above mid Bollinger Band, price is bullish. Below it, price is bearish. So above mid Bollinger Band, price is allowed to go up. Below mid Bollinger Band, price is allowed to go down. And I'm going to tell you right now, I bet Ben does not use Bollinger Bands, but I bet $1,000,000 Ben probably trade everything he trades is above mid Bollinger Band, and that's because that's his style.
You'd be right.
Yes. So I don't know that's what I do is like every day about like a half an hour or so before the monthly. Um, I think the biggest thing is like when it comes to like when I decide to sell, I usually sell at like if something's like if I take a loss, it's usually because it lost its mid Bollinger Band, like because that's bearish. Or like if I'm taking profit, hey, it hit like I know like there's an upper Bollinger Band there. That's where it's gonna cap it, and that's where I'll take profit. So that's kind of how I use that. But I share my charts, in my pin tweet. You guys can look at my pin tweet, and it shows how to read my charts. So I
Did you
I'm
cut
good
out
enough.
for anyone
Are
else?
you guys
Oh,
good enough?
she's back.
Did I lose you guys?
Just for a second. You're all
Sorry.
good.
Yeah, I apologize. My space is like messing up. But so yeah, like that's the biggest thing is like I do have a job, guys. So I have to swing trade. I really use the dailies and I really do most of my buying or selling like a half an hour before market close or in the after hours after I see how the daily is closed.
Bollinger Bands, is that your favorite style? I guess your favorite method of the many?
So I use that the most, but I do know how to chart different ways. Um, and I've had many mentors. So, my first mentor actually was just like Ben. He taught me, can slim, made me buy the William O'Neill book and learn that. So that was my first way of learning. My trouble with that one is volume. I'm terrible with volume. I can't sit in front of the computer and look at volume to see if there's a volume breakout. So I struggle with the volume on that part. But I still use part of that. I've had other mentors that I've learned the Fibonacci's, the ABCD. Use AB to find C, use ABC to find D. Um, so I have different ways of charting. I learned action sequence. I learned that way. Like I like to learn them all because I'm just super technical. I just love to learn.
Didn't catch the total end of that one, but I think I heard 95% of it. So thank you, Katrina, for sharing that, sharing your style. I like it. I feel like, this shows that, technical analysis is something that can be applicable for a number of different types of traders, whether, or even investor, you can really make, long-term investments based on it as well. It does factor in all types. And now I'm going to turn it over to our fourth speaker, and that is Bobby Gattuso. And Bobby, welcome to the first one of my spaces that you're speaking on.
Hey, Gob. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to share a little bit about what I do. And listening to Katrina, I can totally relate with the Bollinger Bands. I'm a big proponent of standard deviations. So, 2 standard deviations away, 3, it's all the same stuff. And then you have the 20-day moving average in the middle. And more so than likely, it really does tend to find its balance at the 20-day moving average with the Bollinger Bands. So I'm a big fan of that. And I caught a little bit part of the when you guys were sharing about books and the can slim and whatnot. And if I had to pick a book, it would be a beginner's guide to day trading online. And I think the author is Tony Turner. I love that book, by the way. So just put that out there. But how I trade is kind of like Shark. I like to look at the market conditions in the morning, see what the options are like, and then volume, with my scanner. But my trade entries are solely based off of breakouts of the moving averages. I'm a big proponent of the 200-day SMA, the 100-day SMA, the 50, 20, and then the 10 as levels of confirmation, and then accompanied that. I think Ben mentioned, when they break these levels, you want to have volume, relative volume. You want to have conviction in these breakouts, or they're just going to break down again. So I watch the volume to make sure that the breakouts, being accompanied by, unusual volume. So that's kind of how I, go about trading during the day. And then, I think Ben was saying that like he does the majority of his stuff, off trading hours. Me as well. I'm looking at charts. I'm drawing support and resistance lines. So I'm ready to go the following day. So there's no surprises. It's helpful to have a game plan going into every single day with your watch list, and then drawing out the lines of support and resistance, and really not taking the trade unless it breaks through those confirmations where you have the stock making higher highs and the stock making lower lows, or I mean higher lows rather. So that's how I kind of go about it. Big proponent of moving averages. Moving averages don't lie. The price action responds in kind to moving averages, in my opinion, with relative volume, with the level of conviction you want to see with the stock.
Bobby, I posted, just tagged them into the space, and they're now pinned in the space. The three graphs that you shot over to me. Do you want to talk on any of those?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I took trades on each one of them today. I think one of them's Lemonade. It's a financial insurance company, and the chart looks really nice to me on a yearly chart. It's breaking above the the 10, the 20, the 50. The one level of resistance is the 100-day moving average, a little bit higher than you see on the chart. But there's a potential breakout level at 99.72 that I saw, with definitely points in the past that was an area of resistance, and it has the potential to break through there, and then hopefully break through the 100-day moving average as well. The next one was the Li Auto, it's the Chinese electric vehicle maker, and that chart looks beautiful. The price action is moving above the 10, the 20, the 50, 100, and the 200. You got all of them, and that's what you'd like to see with these stocks breaking above, making higher highs, breaking through those prior resistance levels. And the resistance level for that one would be the $28.75 that I put it at. So hopefully, it can break through that level, and then it's kind of like a clear runway from there. And then the last one was Fisker, so another electric vehicle stock, and that chart was looking really good as well. It was making higher highs. It was breaking through the moving averages, and that's something you really definitely want to see on a chart, and that's what I look at for my entries. I definitely never want to trade a stock that is below its 200-day moving average, and just thinking about that is a stock's been down for over 200 days. If it's below its 200-day moving average, and you really don't want to trade a stock like that. You really want to see the conviction breaking through those prior moving average resistance levels. So that's why I took the trade for Fisker as well.
Bobby, similar question that I threw at Shark. Can you talk to me about how you manage risk?
How I manage risk? Well, yeah, I think Ben was saying, or Sean was saying that he's moving up his stop loss, and I do the same as well. I take profits. I have no problem taking profits. I think when I first started, I would let those losses kind of pile up, and then the so-called averaging down, which is not a real thing, by the way. It's kind of an interpretation of what your position looks like, because there are different lots at different prices. So I avoid averaging down. I cut my losses quickly. I do have the stop loss, and I'll add to winning positions. I won't add to losing positions, and I think that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. And you just kind of named those three. And one of the things which I found within those three, and I'll then put this back to some of the other questions, is you were following this EV industry, right? Where there was a race across the industry, and you were looking for the moving averages. So when do you kind of pick up a theme during the week, and how do you find that theme where you're looking and going, oh, I see everything across this is moving. I'm going to now go in. I'm going to look at the moving averages. I'm going to find the point. Like, just walk me through that mind process.
Well, it starts with looking at the market conditions. I have one monitor that has about 20 charts on it, and it has all the S&P 500, commodities, metals, real estate. I take a look at each individual sector, which ones are up for the day, and then I go into the stocks for that sector that's pertaining to. And I think Katrina was talking about EVs, and she's absolutely right. Half my trades today were all EV stocks, and everything kind of responds in kind. It's kind of like the airlines. When one airline's up, they're all up, and that's kind of how you see EVs at the moment. So I look at the market conditions. I make sure I look at the futures. I take my time, most importantly, because you can definitely, there's always a better opportunity, and you shouldn't be in a rush for a trade. So that's how I go about it.
Love it. Bringing it back now, kind of to the circle. We got about 10 minutes left. If anybody from the audience, has a specific question for a specific speaker, feel free to DM me that question. I'll do my best to get to it. I have a couple that I want to go through. And my first one, I'm going to propose to you, Ben, and that is, what is the most common question that you get asked by people on Twitter who are either coming in the DMs, coming in your comments? What is it if you kind of could just answer the most popular question, you have the floor, the space, what would you say to those people?
All right, definitely by far the most common one, but I already answered it. What's an inside day? What's a bullish outside day? That is by far the question I get. And it's because I post those, at the end of the day. So it people see that list and, oh, inside, outside, what does this mean? So I now have it as my pinned tweet. I did a video on exactly what I mentioned about how the inside day becomes a triangle, how the outside day becomes a broadening formation, how to trade it, what to look for, how to draw your lines. So that's all my pinned tweet. And we covered that already. So, but what I'm going to mention, though, is the next biggest question I get is where to anchor VWAP. And this is one that when I share my charts, almost always is like, well, how did you know to anchor there? How it's nearly always for me. If you look at volume and you see a power earnings gap, you see a big green candle or a big red candle with big volume, there's a good chance that I'm attaching an anchored VWAP there because that was an event. Something took place there. There was a lot of volume, a lot of emotion involved. I want to know who's in control from that point on. So a lot of Brian Shannon, again, who I got to give a lot of credit to, who puts a lot of stuff out there as far as anchored VWAP and who I learned from. He also, the first day of the week, the first day of the month, the first day of the quarter, the first day of the year, any of those can be important spots too if you're just going by time. Certainly an IPO, if you anchor to IPO day one, that becomes a very important level for who's in control, buyers or sellers. But when you're talking about anchoring a VWAP and where to put it, big gaps that have big volume, highs, relative lows that have volumes, breakouts. Volume is really your clue there because a lot of motion was involved, and you want to know who's in control from that point going forward.
Perfect. Fantastic answer to both of those. And I'm sure that you're getting plenty more questions beyond those. Katrina, I want to bring it to you and bring it a little bit more current. So obviously nothing said on this space is financial advice, but I'm curious, you're a swing trader. Are you looking at any plays, this week or maybe be holding them for a couple of weeks? Any, option calls that you'd be working on? I'm just curious what have you been looking at?
So I'm learning options right now, so I'm not really all big into that right now. But I was actually looking at Zoom. It'd be front running today, so I didn't buy it, but it's show. So I use the bullish crosses. So when the 13 crosses the 50, that's a bullish cross, and usually a buy signal. And I think tomorrow, I'm watching Zoom for tomorrow for the bullish cross. So if it does happen, I will be charting it. I did have just just to show you about his bullish cross. I front ran, I guess you would say, Neo, and it did have the bullish cross today. So that's part of my strategy is bullish crosses. So the 13 bullish crosses the 50, or the 50 bullish crosses the 200, or the 13 crosses the mid Bollinger Band. Like those are bullish crosses. But they love to trick you and avert those bullish crosses, and that's when price goes down and you possibly short. But I mean, right now I'm looking at Zoom. I guess it's I Skills, SKLZ. It did have the bullish cross today, so I'm attempting that. I'm just being a little cautious here because we've had a good Friday, a good Monday, but it looks like high PE, momentum stocks, COVID stocks, like that EV, like that's might be back popular finally.
I sure hope so. Great points there. And also congratulations on hitting 2,000 followers today.
I probably should thank you for that, right?
Well, it's nothing to thank me. I just showcase the talent.
Hey, can I play devil's advocate? You gonna let me have some time to play devil's advocate?
Hit us with it.
Sure. Okay, so guys, like I'm probably a little different than Shark, Ben, and Bobby. Like I will play stuff under the 200. I will play stuff that gaps down, has bad, you know, a lot of stuff we'll just say like TTD, I don't know how bad their earnings were. Maybe they had, what was it? Like they just didn't have good guidance or whatever. But they gapped down huge, right? Like what, a week or so ago. And I was like, yes, loving it. And they gapped down out of the lower Bollinger Band. So I know for a fact it's going to fight to get back in that Bollinger Band. So I jumped in and, I patiently waited, and I waited for like, usually what happens is a falling wedge or a triangle, and it'll, kind of break out of that, and it'll back test its 13 EMA. And that's like a given. Like if anything like has a explosive move down, like it will back test like it's the next EMA. Like it fights for that. It'll fight for that 200. It'll fight for that 13 EMA. And I just want to let people know that. Like I know there's a lot of people that like they buy stuff and it goes down and down and down, and they're like, "Oh my God," and their guts turning over but eventually like there is a trade there, guys. There's a trade there. It will back test. It will fight for that EMA. Now, what it does there is what's important. Will it break above or will it go lower?
I have a couple of questions from the audience, and I also have a question of my own. So, Shark, I'm going to throw a couple of these at you. The first one that I have is, do you currently have any longer term options in place, maybe calls or puts? And kind of what are those, if you would share them with us, and why you have them?
Yeah, like so basically I have like I even the last time when I was on here I explained that in my portfolio I divide it 50% for my short-term trades and then 50% for my long-term trades. I am more on a swing trade and I look to hold things for a 5 to 10 day period. But, there's a lot Katrina actually hit the nail on the head a lot with what she was saying is that I will look for stocks that are very strong and are leaders within their industry, but are oversold. Perfect example today was CrowdStrike, CRWD. I told my community that there was an overreaction on the earnings call. And you can always usually play overreactions in your favor. So perfect example was this morning at 5:30 before, a whole hour before market ever opened, I told the whole community, the moment CrowdStrike opens, I am going to buy a 220 call. Didn't matter the price. For me on options, I always split it. Don't ever just go for the bid or the ask because it will kill you. But split the bid and the ask, and that's what I did. And I mean, I made 40% just on today. I didn't expect that gains, but I sold because the run today was I was expecting for the run this week. And for me, it doesn't matter when the run happens. When the run does eventually happen, because in all of my option plays, the run is inevitable. The big money knows what's going on in the industry, guys. If y'all aren't following unusual options, then at the end of the day, you're not following what the hedge funds and the institutions are buying. And I don't want to be a contrarian. I will definitely play what the big money is playing. And just like Ben, Katrina, and Bobby, and first of all, if anybody on this whole thing, they need to follow Bobby. Bobby should be at 1,000+ followers because that dude just spit real knowledge today. So for me, I'll be honest with you, I use a lot of indicators. Every time I come on here, I try to speak of one, but I use EMAs, I use Bollinger Bands, I use the MACD, RSI, and stochastic. And for me though, it's just indicators, okay? And for me, and I told Wolf, if you don't know technical analysis, please, 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 please go and try to learn. Ben is amazing, Katrina is amazing, Bobby is amazing. Follow all of these people because technical analysis, folks, gives you the proper signals on when to buy and when to sell. Some people just go and say, oh, look, everyone's talking about this stock. I'm going to get into it. And perfect example with our community, Clove. Clove has been gearing up all week. I knew that that was a play ready to go. Everyone was talking about it. The volume was there. And the first thing I said today was it broke a 933 pivot right in the morning. And the first thing that I was saying was if volume is above average on open, this thing is going to fly. And guess what? It did, right? So for me, let me go back. And so like CrowdStrike was one. We're still holding that because I still think that's going to play. There's a couple other ones. FUTU. Those are calls that I've been having for a while now. We've also had TLRY. I've had that for 3 weeks, and that thing has just continued to run, which has been awesome. But for me, I do split it as 50-50. I got my long-term option portfolio, and then I also have my short-term plays. But for me, just like Bobby said, I will never go broke banking. And for me, this is my job. So when I come to the market and if something's running, I'm not going to just let it go. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, or hope, right? I'm being honest with everyone here. If your emotions are feeling like, oh my God, the euphoria is pumping, this thing is running, I'm so happy, that's probably the time to sell, folks. Okay? At the other end, if you're looking at stocks like, oh my gosh, this thing's gonna fall, it's gonna crash, it's gonna keep falling forever, wait, watch it, wait a day, and the thing will start to base and it will start to recover. And Katrina's right. Bollinger Bands are huge. I use that every single day based on where the average true range is and based on is it bullish or is it bearish. And so basically that's my my breakdown. And if I had to say, and I'll be honest with you guys, watch Microsoft, watch DraftKings this week, watch Penn this week, and watch Lucid Motors this week. All large, unusual options that are out of the money.
Perfect. Amazing as always. Thank you, Shark. Kind of give my speakers a chance to do a little bit of wrap up. And that is about leaps. Ben, do you trade any leaps?
Not currently. I'm common only. I mean, I have in the past, and I could probably answer questions on it, but not something that I'm currently doing.
Yeah, this may actually not be based for options, actually. This may just be for long-term positions. So maybe you have, I'm assuming you're holding plenty of regular stock that you, I guess, do you have any stocks that you are planning on holding for multiple years?
Boy, I just cashed out. Like, for example, I had Peloton from the 30s, and I took profits, and I had apps, APPS. That was another one that I had. Gosh, we started that at like 12. But when we went through the correction, I pretty much had to take profits. I use the weekly 10 MA on a lot of those longer term positions. And if they start cracking the weekly 10 MA on big volume, it's usually time for me to lock in gains even on, the longer term stuff. So a lot of that happened earlier this year. So I cashed out on quite a few. So I have some newer positions, that I've just started that may turn into longer term positions. Like Playboy, for example, is one that I started recently. I started Futu. I know they talked about it. Shark talked about it earlier. That's another one that I started. Great fundamentals, really solid stocks, acting very well technically, big volume coming in. So those are some newer ones that could potentially turn into longer term holds.
Perfect. Bobby, I'll throw this one kind of over to you. So if you're opening a long-term position, say, 1 year plus, what sort of technicals would you look for a good entry?
Well, I would look at what's in the past. I would look at areas of possible support. So multiple times where candles, touch at a certain price. I like to have like three touch ups, like 3 points of reference. And I would just look for the bottoms, and I would wait for price action to make higher highs, breaking through those moving averages. And then obviously, with Ben saying, with volume, relative volume, you need volume for conviction. Even if you break through the moving averages, you still need the volume because it'll just, break down again. So conviction with volume, higher highs. But yes, I mean, looking back on a yearly chart, seeing where it's been consolidating, seeing where it's been horizontal for quite a while, you can be kind of certain that that's a very good area of support. And that's why I look for.
Perfect. Awesome. So thank you to everyone who's listening. We ran a little bit over an hour, so we're going to move to wrap up. Make sure to stay for this because there'll be some good stuff. So for the wrap up, I'm just gonna give kind of 1 minute, minute and a half to each speaker, and floor is totally yours. You can say your advice to people getting to this area. You can talk about what you've been doing tomorrow. You can plug a service. Do whatever you like with it. So Katrina, would love to start with you.
Yeah, guys. So, I mean, the biggest thing to me is, I'm very technical. I look at charts. I learn charts. It did take a while. It took more than months to learn to really read a chart. But, I don't trade blindly anymore. And that's what I used to do. Like, if something tanked, I'd be like, oh, it's cheap. Let's buy it. And then it would tank more. And I didn't know it was breaking the mid-Bollinger Band, or breaking a 200, which is not good, and I would just buy. And, I'd be in a loss for, days, weeks, months, which is terrible on your mentality. So one day, I sold the bottom in gold a couple years ago back during the trade war. And that's when I was like, I have got to learn how to chart. I just have to. Like, I can't trade blindly. And so, I set out on a mission to learn how to chart. And, I got a couple mentors. I read charts on Twitter, and, I did my DD. I do it every day, how many people are like, Katrina, take a break. It's the weekend or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, no, this is what I like. This is what makes me happy. So I don't trade blindly anymore. Do I make a lot of money? Sometimes. Do I lose a lot of money? No. I used to lose so much money. So like that's part of it too, is like how much money you're losing. Like you want to make sure you have money to keep trading. So I just suggest everybody learn how to chart. Find a platform, find a mentor or follow me or follow any of these speakers and really learn how to chart so you're not trading blindly anymore.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, Bobby, give us a wrap-up minute.
It's funny, Katrina. I've said the same exact thing to a lot of my friends. I can't imagine not doing the technical analysis with any of my trades because they're on apps that I won't speak about, but they don't have any indicators. That's trading blind, and I can't understand it. And these people won't realize that it broke down below your 200-day moving average or below the middle Bollinger Band, and I first starting out, I was like you, this is on a discount, but it kept going down and down and down, and I didn't really understand for quite a while. And then indicators have consumed my life for a couple of years now, and also I read a ton. I'm probably the only 20 or well, I'm 31 now, but the only guy with a Barron's newspaper. I read that. I read the Wall Street Journal. I'm on Morningstar. I read and read and read, so I'm not surprised. So that's how I kind of go about those things.
This is why I like to hang out with Bobby. Perfect. Awesome. Ben.
Katrina, I'm just going to say what she was discussing about the Bollinger Bands and under the 200-day. If she shares that and I see that and asks me about it, I might hit you with the Homer Simpson gif where he's backing into the trees to disappear. But that's just because it's not me. You are never going to hear me say that it's wrong. There are so many ways to take money from the market. You just have to find what works for you. Get on the right time frame, whatever indicator it may be, whatever time frame, whatever clicks with you, whether it's patterns, if it's just price, whatever clicks and works for you. And that may take time, to figure it out. But once you can match that up with your personality, the time frame, the indicators, the technicals, match that up, with your personality. That's when the magic really happens. If you're a really, laid back, easygoing person, maybe you're better off looking at the weekly chart. If you're going to get emotional about every wiggle, you're probably better off zooming in as a day trader on the shorter time frames. But if you can match that up to your personality, that really is how the magic happens. And from what I've learned in this business, there's no right or wrong. I know people who, trade on a 5 minute chart, and I know people who trade on the monthly, and they're all successful. So don't get discouraged and just stay at it. Manage your downside. If you manage your downside, manage your risk, stay in the game long enough, give yourself a shot to figure it all out.
100%. That's why I kept asking about hedge and risk. I think that's so important for everybody. And, before I go to Shark to close this up, I just want to let everyone know that I'm working with Bobby and Shark, hopefully to put together a Wolf Financial Twitch stream, to have these guys get on there and just stream trading live during the day, free for people to see. If you're interested in what we're doing at Wolf Financial, they've both been really big helps. Been building a company, startups. You can check that out. Links in my bio. We got a huge community on there, and I just found out I'm hopefully getting some big marketing budget, so moving more people on sooner than later. But definitely check out more news for that Twitch stream, which is going to be coming, and I'm going to be excited to watch that and getting my trades. Get these guys some Wolf hoodies to be wearing on that. Anyways, Shark, bring it home.
All right. So first and foremost, well, the one thing that I want to do is I want to shout out every single speaker here. Everyone should be following them as you can hear, we all are successful at our TA, but we all look at it differently. And that is key. Find your strategy. Everyone is different, right? Every single person, like I'll be honest with you, I know for a fact I'm different than Ben, I'm different than Katrina, and I'm different than Bobby, right? But I also respect, understand, and love everything they're saying and also learning, right? I'll be honest. First of all, just like Ben said, figure out what makes you comfortable in a trade. If it is the longer hold where you're not so stressed out, that's probably good for a lot of people, especially if you have jobs. I work with a bunch of people. I do a lot of like one-on-one training with people. Check out my Discord. It's completely free. And one thing that I just want to kind of hammer home is please, 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 everyone, make sure that you have a plan leading into the day. Even if it's 5 stocks, even if it's 1 stock, right? You're going to be more prepared than at least 75% of the people. A lot of people show up to the trade, they wake up, they log on to Twitter, and they just expect to find these big calls. And they expect the people to give them the information they need. Unfortunately, I'll be honest with you, and it's nice. Unusual Whales just popped on here. That is something that I feel like every single person in this entire community should be signing up for. I follow the flow. I follow what's happening on the daily options, and unusual option activity is what the hedge funds and the large institutions are doing. They know more information than any single person in this entire space has put together. Okay? I'm not going to battle that. I'm not going to try and pretend that I'm smarter than the market. That's the key for most people. You come in, and some people want to prove people wrong. All I try to do every single day is make money, and I'm just following the flow. So anything that's going on within unusual options or even the sense of price action, that's where I'm going to be. And anything that you guys need as a community, reach out. Ben has been awesome. Katrina has been awesome. Bobby has been awesome. They all are super responsive. And Wolf is literally the best in the business at this. So reach out to everyone in here, guys. We are huge advocates for new people that are in this industry, and all I want to do is make everyone successful. And if you go into a trade not understanding technical analysis, you're just hoping and gambling. Technical analysis gives you the proper enter and proper sell for anyone. Perfect example. Wolf was just saying how in TA could be perfect for investors. Well, it's true. It will give the proper investor, even if they're a long-term holder, the right entry and the right exit almost every time. So truly try and learn TA. Reach out to me, reach out to Ben, reach out to Katrina, reach out to Bobby, reach out to Wolf. We will all help you. And Wolf will, even if he doesn't know the answer, he'll guide you to the right person. But don't be overwhelmed by technical analysis, because trust me, it's a tool that you have to be successful in this industry.
All fantastic points, Shark. Straight shooter as always. Really appreciate everything you've said, and big shout out to Unusual Whales, who is up here in the crowd at unusual_whales. I find their content fascinating. You can check in always near the end of the trading day, and they'll post stuff that has bullish sentiment going into the end for the next day. They caught when there was that. I found this really fun today. So obviously we all saw the run up in BIIB, I think it is today, Biogen. And they posted the whale that had bought like 4 million shares or traded some crazy options or something like 3 days ago on Friday. So that was really, really cool to see. So maybe someday we'll have Unusual up to speak on a space, talk about their processes. But for now, I want to deeply thank all my speakers for taking time out of your valuable days to share with us. I'm very certain that we'll have another one of these, probably technical analysis ones, maybe talking about more specific names, more charting, something along those lines, because these are really fun to do. And deeply appreciate all the listeners as well for taking time out of your night. Once more, for myself, my name is Gav Blacksburg, and I am the voice of Wolf Financial, and it's been a pleasure chatting. And I'll be back tomorrow night, I believe. Yes, tomorrow night I have a space at 7 p.m. EST with the lead advisors for 7 Investing. That is one of the premier services that people pay for each month. So I have their 3 top advisors, including their CEO, are going to be coming on. And then on Wednesday, I have a space at 8 p.m. EST with the hosts of the #1 finance podcast on Spotify. That's Hugh Henney and Dan Deity of Dips. So some big spaces coming out. I'll put up more info on them. So make sure you're joining up with the Wolfpack and checking out all my speakers. Take care, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your evenings.